Hi, everyone. I am Sound and Scene Program Director Rich Gill. I'd like to welcome you all this morning to Sound and Scene 21. We're going to be having a conversation with writer, musician, father, Minnesota mainstay. I don't know if I missed anything in there, Jim Walsh. Morning,
Rich, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Happy Pandemic Saturday.
Yeah.
Just another Pandemic Saturday.
Yeah. How many are we on now? 8 million, feels
Yep.
like.
Yep. Backtracking at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk to Jim about he has a new book coming out, Fear and Loving in South Minneapolis, correct?
Yep. Right on. Can we
Glad I got
talk
that
Sound
right.
Unseen first? Can we shout out to Sound Unseen and talk about how you guys have kept this film festival going? In what
Yeah.
year is it in this pandemic year, and how's it going? What are you guys doing? How crazy has it been?
It's been weird, It's unlike any other year. Instead of running around to, you know, bars and venues and theaters and all kinds of hotel runs and stuff like that, it's we're all sitting in front of our computers like
Right.
we've been doing for the last 8 months.
But people are still loving the films, and
Yeah, yeah.
you're I mean, you're doing it and you're doing your events. So
Yeah,
that,
and that's, like with this conversation with you, this is what we do, no matter how we're doing it, if we're in person, not in person. We just want to make sure we're bringing great films, cool events, talking to people who we enjoy, and yeah,
right
just
on.
giving it to the
Cool,
people.
cool. Kudos, man. Way to go.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about the book in a little bit. But I also just wanted to generally talk about, just Minneapolis and the world and what's been going on the last 8 months. I do want to ask a quick question before we really get into it. There's a story in the book about one of the first stories where you talk to Curtis A. And
Mm-hmm.
he's a big Jeopardy fan.
Yep.
Have you talked to him since Alex Trebek passed away?
I have not, and I have a standing phone call date with him that I have to get on probably today or tomorrow. But
Yeah.
yeah, he is the biggest Jeopardy fan I know, and I mean, for that column, I went and I watched Jeopardy with Kurt, and he's amazing because he knows his stuff when it comes to music and pop culture, but philosophy and history, U.S. history especially, he was great at. So yeah, I got to call him and give him my condolences and just say, hey, man, you know, hang in there without Trebek. But yeah, that's a good one. He's very funny in that column because he just the quote I just remember is, I don't like people, I like animals, and that's Kurt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's he's been involved in a couple things that we've done, and I've never had like one-on-one conversations with him, but I definitely you sort of get that vibe from him just watching him talk as part of panels and stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
he's a character for
I
sure.
have a 3 hour interview with Kurt that I have never even transcribed, and that's one of my
Wow.
pandemic projects for sure. So
Yeah.
there's good stuff in there about Minneapolis music history that I just kind of never got around to. So
Yeah. Well, with the pandemic going on, I think a lot of people are, a lot of us aren't working, have a lot of time on our hands. So people have been, kind of working on projects that they've been meaning to get to in a while. What else have you been doing during all this?
I've been doing that. I've been writing songs. I'm working on a big fiction project for the first time, and I'm locked in on that. I'm really, I'm grateful for the time. Early on, I realized it's a lot of reading, writing, listening, singing time. That we're normally, you're running around to gigs or life commitments or just living in the world. And I had to pivot like everyone, really hard and really get a grip. So I've been grateful for listening time and reading time and writing and playing. So and that's been lasting over these 8 months. It's kind of rare that you get a chance where the universe is going, just stop and collect yourself and what's important, and how are you going to pass the day. So I found great solace in reading and listening, like I said. But it's just the town itself, Minneapolis, has just changed so much. Since January. And I mean, talking about the book, just thinking about the book, I'm glad it exists as kind of a history book, because that writer, I think that wrote those pieces, I don't think he exists anymore, as the town doesn't, in so many ways. South Minneapolis, um, just for example, but all of Minneapolis, the book entails all of that: Northeast Minneapolis, North Minneapolis, Southeast Minneapolis. And, I mean, uh, I'm happy to have it as kind of, it's not printed yet. It's still coming next month, but it's instantly a history book. And from a time when I could kind of while away, with, important news and trivial news, so-called trivial news, that seems to be, right. I mean, that right now we're at a premium for. That world is gone, at the moment. Record virus cases today, and you know, um, we're all in our own little, hovels, doing this. So it's a reminder of, community and family ties and love and music and all of that. So I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it's coming out.
Yeah, that was, one of the interesting things in going through it, that I moved to Minneapolis in 2003, so fairly newish to the city, under 20 years.
Mhm.
But I've been coming here, since I was a teenager. And a lot of, the book is, oh, I remember when Uptown was like this, or,
Yeah,
it's a nice, remembrance of, as much as, the city is changing. I was just thinking back to those times, and, the nostalgia button kicks in, and,
right. It
yeah,
is nostalgia, and it's also a way of being, and how people have been. It's good to capture that, to remember that. I'm fascinated by this idea of, um, this native land that we all live on, and and how all of this in 2020 is coming to bear. And we're all looking at it. We're all looking at, y- you know, um, our part in everything in this society, in who we are as a collective people. And 2020 will be marked as that. I mean, I think above and beyond everything else, it will be a real consideration of consciousness, of, um, what is my part in all things, going forward, because we're down to really bare basics of living. And I go back to the first people a lot these days, and um, you know they were right about everything. And so getting back to that, and just trying to keep my head above ground, and I go to the dog park every day, and it's the happiest place in the world, the airport dog park over on 28th. And those dogs, they know how to live, man. They just romp and hump each other and love each other up, and then
they
go
got to
home.
figure it out.
They do.
Um, well, I'm gonna go right into a question from from the audience. We're just going to jump into it, I guess. Any chance you can touch on the George Floyd tragedy and what you think the long-term effects on the city and culture will be?
Tragic. I mean, the trial will happen in March. No justice, no peace, man. I mean, I think that, those cops killed George Floyd, and I hope justice is done. An absolute reckoning, for the country, and having it emanate from that epicenter of 38th in Chicago has been incredible to watch, be part of, report on. And that legacy, I think, will outlive us. I think it's forever. And, you know, we live in Minneapolis, we live in the Twin Cities, and, biking, walking, driving around, George is there, in our face every day, every hour. And, there's a reason for that. And I think it stands in stark contrast to the white racism that is part of this country's history, and that has found um, a loudmouth in Trump. And, angry white people are this country's birthright, basically. And we gotta move forward. We're all in this together, especially now this pandemic proves it like nothing else has. We are all in this together. And if you're following this guy who is merely peddling white anger, I think we're beyond that. I mean, obviously 70 million people are not, but I have great hope for the morphing melting pot always, and I would hope that, that people will wake up and go, what am I doing? Why am I so angry? What has the world or life, not given me? I have great hope for that. I have, for a deeper, populace, a more thoughtful, way of being for the whole country. So, George Floyd, man, I spent some time there that week when he was killed, reporting some stories, and those are ingrained in me. And the people's voices and photos and stories out of there are, forever. And it's an ongoing thing. It's my neighborhood. I live a mile away from 38th in Chicago, and
Me too.
yeah, right. And and friends live right there, and et cetera. So it's it's an ongoing legacy for sure.
And I think, I think it's also, it kind of shows that, this isn't a LA or New York, issue, or like a big city thing. Like this, systemic racism, it's everywhere. And hope, I mean, you hope that it's opened people's eyes to that, and shown that it's,
I mean, don't you feel that? Don't you? I honestly, I feel differently. I'm a different person than I was in 2019.
For sure.
I am, and I've allowed that to be too. And I didn't have the words, a lot of the words, but I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Be it white supremacy, white privilege, my consciousness has been raised, in a way. I mean, we can use the word woke or what have you, but I'm a much different person than I was a year ago for a lot of reasons. And I welcome that, and I recognize why people push back against that kind of growth. and change, because it's such a reckoning within yourself. You got to ask yourself, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. Jason Isbell was on Twitter this morning going, I don't do enough. I admit it.
I saw that. Yeah.
And to say that is right on, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do enough. I haven't done enough. And and I will spend the rest of my life doing it, whatever that may be, storytelling, singing, talking to people and just chewing on this. And I mean, honestly, I'm reading a lot of history these days, and, looking for perspective of the here and now. And, people 1 year, 10 years ago, 20, 30, hundreds of years ago, did not have the consciousness that we have now. And I'm not dragging my feet on that. I'm reacting to that, and I will write about it, like I said, and sing and go forth with that true knowledge of how this country started and how this world is, and really practice empathy. That's in the book. I remember seeing this film, I Am, at the Uptown Theater. I was like the only person in the theater. It was a Sunday night, and
Sounds accurate for the Uptown.
yeah, right. And that was the one takeaway, that Charles Darwin in The Descent of Man, he writes about, it's like, the survival of the fittest. That phrase is mentioned only twice in that book, yet that's what endures. Survival of the fittest. And sympathy is mentioned as the characteristic that all humans share in our DNA. That's mentioned 25 times. So all of this Trump shit and everything that you read and everything, I keep that in mind too. Empathy and sympathy is ingrained in us, in our DNA. And so I think when you talk about the anger and the racism, or perhaps the overthinking of it all, I go to that. We're all born empathetic. We're all born sympathetic for our brothers and sisters. And it's why we both gorge on news and then shut it off, because you're saving self and sanity. But yeah, I'm trying, man. I'm trying out here.
No, I feel you. And that's, something that I've definitely been more mindful of also, like, making sure that I'm an ally and an advocate for, women and people of color and the LGBTQ community, and lifting those voices, be it showcasing films, or,
Yeah.
just, as little as like retweeting stuff, or,
Yep.
just making sure that that's a active part of my everyday life.
Cool. It's very basic, but very important. And, again, I mean, I just think that it's a crucial moment for all of that, and it's going to be for years. But this year in particular, if we are to get back to any kind of peace post-pandemic, if we're going to have a conversation that is better than this, literally better than this, we gotta keep pushing forward with all those ideas. So on it.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's definitely something that I think is all, a work in progress for all of us, and something we're striving for every day. Kind of pivoting a little bit, with city pages closing down, how do you see that kind of fitting into the picture of, bringing attention to stuff that might not usually hit like the big mainstream press?
There's two things. I mean, several things. City Pages going down. The Southwest Journal stops publishing
Mhm.
next month, and that's that's just tragic. I mean, the Southwest Journal, um, local newspapers that way are, the lifeblood of communities, as any small publisher can tell you. And with City Pages, the same thing. And what it really occurred to me in these first couple weeks without City Pages and with Southwest Journal on the ropes, it really occurred to me, especially on those two Wednesdays, you know, among all our friends who worked at these papers losing their jobs, where do those stories go? They were all working on stories, whatever they may be. And that haunts me. That's really haunting. And again, it's kind of like, uh, you know, um, grateful for the time that they have existed and being part of that part of journalism in this era. But they're gone, and those stories are gone, and it's an immediate. Um, it feels oppressive. It feels like there's a cork in the town for news, and there's voices that are gone. They exist on social media for sure, but that idea that there was a place where a writer could sit down and, you know, write a column, me to you, 1,000 words. Here's what I'm chewing on. It's tangential. It's newsworthy. It's whatever. That's gone, for the most part. And there's all sorts of options, but those communal, like those newspapers gave such voice and um, perspective that's gone. And things will spring up. There's I've been approached by people already, talking about different things, but worth mourning at the moment because of how things are. And um, that's in the past. It's weird. It's like and Sid Hartman died the same week that all of that happened. And that's that it, when you see a scribe go like that, I love the word scribe. I mean, I write about it in the book about kind of how, the beginning of the idea of scribe, I think started in Ireland with the scribes putting down, for the Book of Kells, putting it all down for posterity at great danger to themselves. Um, Sid Hartman was a scribe that way. He was in his, hometown, and he took it all down. His focus was sports, but that's gone now too. Even that, just that, 100-year-old Sid writing about the Gophers, that's gone. That doesn't exist this morning. So other things step up in their place. There's great things. The Sahan Journal is wonderful. Minnesota Reformer is wonderful. So it's just change, and it changes with the demographics of the state too. So it's yeah, it's brutal. But thanks a lot, Glenn Taylor, for kicking in the the paltry monies that would have saved all those jobs and City Pages, and we wouldn't be talking about this. So
Coming off of that, the book is full of stories going back to, and columns and stuff going back to, I think 1989 was maybe
I
the
bet,
latest
yeah.
one.
I got a late start in journalism. I was in bands for a decade,
Well,
and
there is like some short story stuff that you wrote when you were a kid.
yeah,
Uh,
right, yeah. That was weird to find. Yeah,
I can
yeah,
bet. I've
yeah.
run across some old like songs I wrote when I was super young. It's like, ooh, Oh, maybe I shouldn't
But
have
it's your
found one.
voice. You
Right.
literally go, God, that's my voice. It's still, it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing when you have that stuff. Yeah.
For people who don't know how like collections like this maybe come about, how did you go about choosing what to put in there? Or, did you have help with
I
someone
did.
else doing it?
I did. It was originally, I pitched it in my book proposal to the University of Minnesota Press. God bless the University of Minnesota Press for publishing in a pandemic. They've got a full
Yeah.
titles coming out this fall, a full catalog of titles. I pitched it a few years ago as a collection, a bigger collection than this, and they initially only wanted my music stuff, which I have a ton of. And so we focused on that for the first book, Bar Yarns and Manic Depressive Mixtapes. And I love that exists. There's a lot of, as all this happens, as digital goes down, as print goes down, et cetera, I'm very happy to have these two books of, there's something in me as a scribe or an archivist or whatever, that it gives me great peace to know that these are going forward. When I'm dead, these exist. So they only wanted music, so that was the first one, and it's right here somewhere. Here's labeled. For reals, for reals.
Which is great, by the way. I have a
Thank you.
copy and I enjoy it. So
It's
pick
a
it up.
it's not a bestseller exactly, but it's my work. And so then we went forward and they said, yes, let's do another one. And I wrote it. I went to Montana. I compiled it. And just waited for a couple of years, and now it's coming out next month. So my editor Eric Anderson was great, helping kind of cull this next one down, because I had a bunch of stuff, and I still do, but I'm happy to have this be the last of my back pages, and looking forward to rejoining you all in the present, even though what I'm working on now is far from being in the present.
This is another question from the audience. Can you talk about the role you think music can play in transforming our white supremacist Minnesota culture, or is this too big for music?
No, nothing's ever too big for music. It's essential. And, I'm thrilled that, people are writing about it and singing about it. I think music just historically has been the great teacher of, I mean, especially, white people about other cultures, all cultures, Yeah, I think that always I have great belief in the power of music, both for the individual and the collective. I believe in anthems. I believe in sing-alongs, and live stream gigs and all of that. It all expresses that deep thing in us, even if it, yeah, like you're saying, can in the scheme of everything feel trivial. No, I think it's the most important. Music.
Well,
Music.
and I think there's a long history of call it protest music or whatever you want, from like Woody Guthrie to Phil Oakes to the Clash to I've heard of people um, sort of questioning themselves from because even Insane Clown Posse is bringing up this topic, and that's powerful for a kid who isn't exposed to other cultures or things like that.
Right. What did Insane Clown Posse do?
They've just been pretty outspoken about you know uh, lifting Black voices and anti-Trump, anti-white supremacy, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to express the times and react to the times, and people do it in a variety of ways, explicitly, implicitly, as a secret to themselves. You know, this is my battle cry. Music and writing is very inner, and I think that, I mean, my favorite record right now is the Jeff Tweedy record, and that kind of has nothing to do with anything that's going on politically, and yet it does, because he's my buddy at the end of the night, and thanks, man. And I listen to it almost every night, quietly, and it's like, dude, hold my hand a little bit here, I appreciate it. So that's protest music too, all sorts of ways. Music is the infinite for me, and when it gets bogged down by something too specific, it kind of ceases to be musical. So, and I try to do that as I write songs too. I very much have a right side, left side brain thing, where as a journalist, I sit down and I compile information and make it make sense. And then as a songwriter, I really want to get away from that, and as much as I can, and going inner and deeper than that. So
You talk a lot about your kids also,
yeah,
and I have a 10-year-old son, and one of the columns that really stuck out to me was when you were talking to your son about like what it was like in the 80s, like going to gigs and stuff, and him being like, what about, why didn't you just watch something on YouTube? It's like, well, there was no YouTube. And I've had that exact same conversation with my son. So
yeah, it's a trip. Yeah,
yeah, it's interesting, you know, talking to this generation who this is all they've known, like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
technology all the time.
yeah.
Um, yeah, how is, you have two kids, correct?
Yep. Helen and Henry, they're
Yeah.
young adults now. They're doing good. Henry is married. He's a cook at D'Amico Cucino, and Helen is going into her senior year at the U. She's they're great, and I'm glad I wrote a lot of those columns down just as a young dad, because it's really fleeting. So, and I just cherish it, man. It's like, your 10-year-old is like, will say things to you, just like, you got to write it down. You're like, it's
Yeah.
precious. It's very sweet, and I'm glad I have those archived. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm noticing that a lot. Now
The
especially.
one column in there that I really point to is, God, I just really remember, there's two things I really remember. I remember pitching my last round of batting practice to my son. I just knew it was over. I knew, like, he was in 8th grade, and it was like his team. They were all going to high school and da da da. And I knew, this is it. This is my last time pitching batting practice to these guys. And I just savored that afternoon. And then there was a column I wrote about seeing this soccer game, and this dad was just like, I watched him just pacing the sidelines, like he was checking his phone. He did not want to be there. He was like bored, yuppie dad or whatever. And I was like, dude, savor this. And I'm really grateful that I was in the moment, for when my kids were little, as much as you can, because
Yeah.
you're dealing with everything too. So
Yeah, that's definitely something, the older he gets, the more I try to be mindful of, like, maybe I'm tired from work, or I'm, working on something. It's like I don't really want to go shoot baskets, but I should.
right. Yeah, right,
I'm
right.
gonna miss this.
And then, I mean, my son and I play basketball together. We did until COVID, but we played 2 or 3 times a week with a bunch of guys. And you don't know where you're going to be in 10 years now, man. You might be guarding him and he might be torching you. So get ready for that. That's fun.
Yeah, can't wait.
Torching you. Thanks, son.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I want to talk a little bit about the Hootenanny.
Yes.
So nowadays, with people are anyone can just make songs on their computer. There doesn't have to be such a thing as band practice, especially now. But I'm talking like pre-COVID.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's a little bit of a generation of people who are missing the magic of just like getting on stage and just jamming with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
How important do you see that as in just being a active musician and playing?
Huge. I mean, it is it's like nothing else. I mean, you know that. And the hoots are gone, for now. You can't get together. But there's no feeling like, you know, being with a bunch of people and having it be either spontaneous, like with the hoot, either a sing along or play along or moments like that, or with a well rehearsed thing. There's just, it's the best. And God, I mean, I just cherished all of those hootenanny years, all those getting together and being in the flesh with people. It's why we started it. It was to get people together who normally don't get together on a stage together, to form community. I really realized as I went along playing music and reporting and writing, I realized people didn't get together necessarily from various camps or towns or scenes around. And I really thought that would be cool to, to bring people together and meet. And then, if you go for 3 hours on a stage together where you swap stories and songs, you really do form something that's a one night only magic. And it is that. And nothing like it, because real bonds are formed and they're fleeting, but in that moment, it's just everything. And it's communion, it's community, it's music and magic. And it's funny because it's like, and I'm always, I'm right there because I've asked everybody to come but I always, like, at the beginning of every hoot, I just would go like, here we go. And it was very much like turning the key on an engine to see what was going to happen. And you knew it was going to be great in some fashion, but you didn't know exactly how. And I've said this before, it's very much, the Replacements were like that for me. My brother's band is like that for me now. The Belfast Cowboys and St. Dominic's Trio. It's this spontaneity and off the cuff moments that really, really, explode you inside. And, there's a history in this town, and I think it was born by the Mats, of, fucking around and going, it doesn't have to be Mozart. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that allows, for amateurs like me to, give it a shot and really have something musical happen. And there have been many times where I was in tears at the Hoot, because of something somebody sang or said. And yeah, I miss it. It very, very church-like, without having anything at the top, other than music. So I miss it. I miss people. I miss all you people.
Yeah, and I think there's a charm to just going somewhere, going to a bar or a club or something, and seeing people on stage, and maybe it's a little sloppy and a little off key, and you know, but that just makes it so much more like in the moment when
Yeah,
it's not, you know, we're not striving for perfection. It's just that feeling. And
it is. And then when you're seeing a musician do that and not being too concerned about, uh, it, it really, um, it's a blast. I mean, I can't believe how much, I didn't miss live music very much right away in the pandemic. Because like I said, I instantly went, this is 18 months. This is going to be 18 months. That's what I read. And I set my sails for that. Like, okay. And no live music, can't be around people. And then I started missing it about a couple months in. And it's just the most random things. It's not even the big shows or touring. I really miss just the opportunity to just pop in and see a friend playing, or uh, just have a beer with a buddy and listen to the band. And those are such, live music is such a fabric, such a part of the fabric of this town in particular, that you really wonder what's the damage. Uh, and hopefully someday 2022 or something will be able to hug and harmonize again together.
yeah, music in general, I was doing a monthly, I guess, DJ night, you could call it. I would just play records at Dusty's, and
Right on.
just that, like just hanging out with
Oh my
people.
God,
This, like,
Dusty's.
yeah,
I miss Dusty's so much.
yeah.
Just yeah.
It's one of those like last, places, like the 400 bar and the Uptown bar, of just like, it's been here forever, and just being able to hang out with people and talk
Yeah.
about records that we're into, and play stuff like Foghat and then the Replacements or the Huskers, and
Yeah. In a
it's
bar with people.
in a
Yeah.
bar with people,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very taken for granted. And I did this a lot for the first few months. Like, if you could, I mean, if you were to, is that a Bloody Mary, man?
Yeah,
Oh, cheers.
I had to calm my nerves a little bit before this.
Nice. No, I mean, that the randomness of it all is what I miss. Just I'm gonna go see Cornbread Harris. I'm gonna go to the Hook. Yeah, Cornbread's playing. I'm gonna go see my brother. Those guys Tuesday nights at the Driftwood. The Grateful Dead band at the Driftwood on Sunday nights. Yeah, I'm gonna go up and have a beer and watch those guys freak out. Um, all sorts of other things. That you know. That you start ticking down. I was going to say that I did this a lot in the first couple of months. Like, if you had said a year ago, we're not going to be able to go to bars, and we're not going to be able to just do these very taken for granted, wonderful parts of our lives, what would you say? What did it? And here we are, and now we know. So, yeah, it makes I, I'm trying to do the practice gratitude thing all the time. Really small things. Grateful for my family, friends, and love, and it can be very bleak, but you make that phone call to a friend or brother or sister or something, and that really helps a lot for me. And music for sure, and reading.
Yeah.
And sound unseen.
Well,
Honestly,
thank you.
things like that, just going forward, go, okay, you know,
Yeah, I
it's
think
not
it's
even normalcy, because the films that you bring to people are inspiring that way, and
Yeah.
from a different time too. So
Yeah. And I think we try to, with what we do, just be like a little bit of, we're going to be okay. We'll get through this in some
yeah,
way or another. We're going to
right,
get through this.
right on.
Well, we're getting a little close to the end, but definitely want to make sure to give you a chance to, plug the book, let people know when it's coming out. Anything else you want to say about it? We didn't get to a ton of stories about it, but I think people are really going to enjoy it.
Cool. Yeah, it's called Fear and Loving in South Minneapolis, and it's a collection that dates from, I think, 1988 to a couple of years ago. Comes out via the University of Minnesota Press in December, and I'm going to do some other online events, and I'm going to play some of my tunes maybe later in December, kind of around that. And yeah, thanks everybody who's pre-ordered it. You can go to the University of Minnesota Press website and order it, or Majors and Quinn, Irreverent Bookworm, Moon Palace, Subtext in St. Paul, all over independent bookstores. And I'll sign some for the bookstores and stuff, but we're not really doing in-store signings or readings. But yeah, I think I'm happy it's coming out. It's a nice, quiet, read about, the city and state we love.
Yeah, and that was sort of my takeaway with it. Was it's something that you can, at the end of the day, just pick it up, read through a few stories, and it's so, like you said, it's you talking about music, and it's you just talking about going to Lake Harriet or the
Yeah,
the dog park, and it covers so much ground
yeah.
that it's
Like
great.
TikTok. I've decided it's like TikTok. It's my, I don't have a TikTok, but you can jump from one thing and they all kind of make you feel something. So
It's the analog TikTok. That's going to be your
yeah, exactly.
tagline.
And then all the TikTok users will get it and go, what? No, this is not like TikTok at all.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jim, so much for doing this. You've always been a big friend to the festival and supporter. And, it was great having you a couple years ago on the panel with Sin and Danny Sigelman and Andrea, all of our other friends. So
Yeah, all the
always
writers. Yeah.
talking to you.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. And, good to see you kind of in the flesh. That's what I say to people when I see them in the flesh all the time. I mean, I was doing that before the pandemic. Good to see you in the flesh, because
yeah, we'll have to do this again over a beer once this gets back to some sort of normalcy.
sounds good. Thanks for having me, man.
Cool.
Love to all you guys.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We love you from Minneapolis.
Thanks, everyone. Take care and enjoy the rest of Sound Unseen.